Lisa Techel was everything that made people believe in the American dream. She was a 23-year-old newlywed, glowing with the promise of a bright future. She was 17 weeks pregnant, preparing to welcome her first child with her high school sweetheart, Seth Techel. Together, they seemed like the couple everyone aspired to be, deeply in love, hardworking, and united by shared dreams. Lisa's career in law enforcement was just taking off. She worked as a jailer in Washington County and spent her spare time volunteering as a reserve deputy, following in her father's footsteps. Her husband, Seth, also shared her passion for service, working as a volunteer firefighter and planning his own career in law enforcement. They were the golden couple of their small Iowa town. But on a calm morning in May 2012, that dream life came to a sudden, brutal end. A single gunshot tore through the heart of this perfect picture, leaving Lisa and her unborn baby dead. The story that unfolded in the aftermath would shock everyone who knew them. Was this the act of a jealous and vengeful neighbor, or was the danger much closer than anyone could have imagined? And why would it take not one, not two, but 3 trials to finally bring the person responsible to justice? What secrets did this small Iowa community hold that would make this one of the most talked about cases in years? It was a quiet, peaceful morning in the rural town of Agency, Iowa. The kind of morning where nothing ever happens. But that stillness was shattered by the sound of a single gunshot. What would you have done in this situation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in the importance of safe communities, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay updated on similar cases and stories as soon as we post. Seth Techel, Lisa's husband, told police that he had been in the shower when he heard the loud, sharp crack of a gun. Rushing out, he said he found Lisa collapsed in their bedroom. She wasn't breathing. The love of his life and the mother of his unborn child was gone in an instant. Seth frantically called 911, his voice filled with panic and grief. He told the dispatcher that Lisa had been shot and that their home had been invaded. To anyone listening, it sounded like a tragic and senseless act of violence. But as first responders arrived at the scene and began to assess the situation, something about Seth's story didn't sit right. There were no signs of forced entry. Nothing was stolen. The crime scene didn't match the story of a home invasion gone wrong. The investigators quickly realized that this wasn't a random attack. Someone had targeted Lisa Techel deliberately. But who? And why? Was this the work of a neighbor with a known history of disputes, or was the truth much darker, hiding in plain sight? Lisa and Seth Techel seemed like the couple you'd find in a romantic movie. They met in high school, and over the course of 7 years, their love blossomed into a beautiful partnership. In October 2011, they celebrated their wedding in front of family and friends, vowing to build a life full of love and promise. Lisa was described by everyone who knew her as kind, dedicated, and full of life. She loved her family fiercely and was overjoyed to be starting her own. Her father, Todd Caldwell, proudly spoke about her determination to follow in his footsteps in law enforcement. Lisa wanted to make a difference in the world, and she was well on her way to doing just that. Seth, too, seemed like the perfect partner. He supported Lisa's dreams while building his own career in public service. Together, they looked like the embodiment of young love and ambition, ready to take on the world hand in hand. But as the investigation into Lisa's murder began, cracks in that perfect image started to appear. Friends and family who once saw Seth and Lisa as the ideal couple began to wonder, was their relationship as perfect as it seemed? Behind closed doors, were there secrets that no one knew? Was there more to their story than anyone could have imagined? The answers would come slowly, and they would devastate everyone who believed in the fairy tale of Lisa and Seth Techel. Seth Techel wasted no time pointing the finger at their neighbor, Brian Tate. Tate was a Vietnam veteran who lived just next door. He struggled with schizophrenia and had a history of disagreements with the Techel family. According to Seth, these disputes sometimes got heated enough to make Tate a potential suspect in the eyes of the police. Tate's reputation in the community didn't help his case. He was known to be eccentric and unpredictable, and his mental health challenges made him an easy target for suspicion. Seth claimed that Tate had been harassing the couple for months, accusing them of encroaching on his property and stirring up trouble. But when investigators questioned Tate, they found a very different picture. He was calm, cooperative, and provided a solid alibi for the morning of May 26, 2012. He had been at home with his wife, and nothing tied him to the scene of the crime. Forensic evidence further backed up his claims there was no physical connection between Tate and Lisa's murder. This left investigators with a troubling question. Was Brian Tate unfairly accused because of his mental health struggles? Or was there someone else who had more to gain from Lisa's death? With Tate ruled out, detectives began to turn their attention back to the Techels' home. And as they dug deeper into Seth's life, they uncovered something no one expected, something that would turn the investigation upside down. As the investigation continued, detectives began to piece together a darker side of Seth Techel's seemingly idyllic life. What they found shocked everyone who thought they knew him. Through phone records and text messages, investigators uncovered a secret Seth had been hiding. He was having an affair with a co-worker, Rachel McFarland. Rachel was a fellow volunteer at the fire department and had grown increasingly close to Seth in the months leading up to Lisa's death. Their relationship wasn't just a casual fling, it was intense, passionate, and filled with promises. Rachel had given Seth an ultimatum: leave Lisa or their relationship would end. Seth responded with a chilling message: just give me 2 weeks. Those words hung over the investigation like a dark cloud. 2 weeks. Was that how long Seth had planned to keep Lisa in his life before making a decision? Detectives couldn't ignore the possibility that Lisa's murder wasn't just a random act of violence or a dispute with a neighbor. Was it the tragic conclusion of a secret relationship spiraling out of control? Rachel, under pressure from investigators, revealed details about her relationship with Seth. The explicit messages, the promises, and the growing tension between them painted a picture of a man torn between two lives, one with his wife and unborn child, and another with a woman who demanded a future with him. With this discovery, the case against Seth began to take shape. But the most damning evidence was yet to come. Just days after Lisa's death, a key piece of evidence surfaced that would change everything. Investigators searching the area around the Techels' home discovered a shotgun hidden in the tall grass near the trailer. It was a Mossberg 500 consistent with the wounds that had killed Lisa. But there was a problem. Seth hadn't mentioned this shotgun to police. In fact, he insisted he had no idea where it came from. To investigators, this omission raised a glaring red flag. As they traced the shotgun's history, they uncovered a critical connection. A former roommate of Seth's came forward and identified the weapon. It had been his, but he had left it behind when he moved out of the Techel home. That shotgun, left in Seth's possession, now became the centerpiece of the investigation. Forensic experts matched the ballistics to the shotgun, confirming it was the weapon used in Lisa's murder. The evidence was damning. Why hadn't Seth mentioned it? Why was it discarded near the crime scene? And most importantly, why did it seem like every new piece of evidence pointed directly to him? As the puzzle pieces began to fall into place, the image of a grieving husband started to blur. Investigators now had to ask, was Seth Techel the mastermind behind this horrifying crime? Or was there still another layer to this shocking case? The road to justice for Lisa Techel was anything but straightforward. What should have been a clear-cut case turned into a long, drawn-out battle, leaving her family and the community waiting for answers. The first trial of Seth Techel began with high expectations. Prosecutors laid out their evidence, pointing to Seth's affair, the missing shotgun, and the inconsistencies in his story. But the defense leaned heavily on an alternative theory, blaming the neighbor, Brian Tate. The jury was divided. After days of deliberation, they couldn't reach a unanimous verdict. It ended in a hung jury. Then, tragedy struck again. Before the second trial could take place, Brian Tate, the man Seth's defense had accused of the murder, passed away from heart failure. With Tate no longer able to defend himself, his family took on the burden of protecting his legacy, insisting he had nothing to do with Lisa's death. In the second trial, prosecutors refined their arguments. They introduced more evidence to discredit the claims against Tate, showing that Seth's narrative didn't add up. But once again, the jury was split this time, 9-3 in favor of conviction. Still, it wasn't enough. A mistrial was declared, and Lisa's family was left in limbo. The third trial was different. Prosecutors had learned from their mistakes. They streamlined their case, focusing on the strongest evidence: the affair, the shotgun, and Seth's suspicious behavior in the days following Lisa's murder. This time, the jury wasn't left in doubt. They delivered a verdict that would finally bring an end to the legal saga, but not the pain felt by Lisa's loved ones. In 2014, 2 years after Lisa Techel's life was tragically cut short, the jury reached their final decision. Seth Techel was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For prosecutors and Lisa's family, it was the moment they had fought for, a declaration of guilt that left no room for doubt. But the victory was bittersweet. For Lisa's parents, Todd and Tracy Caldwell, the conviction brought justice but not closure. Todd would later reflect on the verdict, saying, "We're grateful for the jury's decision, but it doesn't bring Lisa back. We'll never get to meet our grandchild, and we'll never see Lisa fulfill the dream she worked so hard for." Lisa's mother, Tracy, shared a similar sentiment: "We wanted justice, and we got it." But this isn't a happy ending. It's just the end of a very painful chapter. As Seth was led away in handcuffs, the courtroom was filled with a mixture of relief and heartbreak. The community that had followed the case for years could finally begin to heal, but the scars left behind would remain forever. Lisa Techel's story is a haunting reminder of how quickly a life full of promise can be destroyed by lies, betrayal, and violence. And though justice was served, the question of why it had to happen will always linger in the hearts of those who knew and loved her. The tragedy of Lisa Techel's murder didn't stop with her death. Its impact rippled through families, friendships, and an entire community, leaving a trail of heartbreak and unanswered questions. While Lisa's family grappled with their devastating loss, another family fought a very different battle. Brian Tate, the neighbor initially accused by Seth Techel, had already endured years of living with schizophrenia. When his name was dragged into the investigation, it wasn't just his reputation that suffered, it was his spirit. Tate's sister later spoke out, saying he was a kind man who just wanted to live in peace. The accusations broke his heart. He couldn't believe people thought he was capable of something so horrible. Tate's death from heart failure during the trials left his family to shoulder the weight of clearing his name. To this day, they believe the stress of being wrongly accused contributed to his decline. But the damage didn't end there. Multiple families were torn apart by Seth's actions. The Techel family, once proud of their son and his bright future, was left to reconcile his betrayal. Friends who had celebrated Seth and Lisa's wedding just months earlier were now divided, questioning how well they really knew him. And in this quiet Iowa community, a sense of trust was shattered. The trailer where Lisa and Seth once dreamed of starting their family became a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can hide beneath a picture-perfect surface. Lisa Techel's story is one of heartbreak and betrayal, but it's also a testament to the resilience of those left behind. This young woman, with her infectious smile and dreams of serving her community, was taken far too soon. Lisa's murder wasn't just the loss of one life, it was the loss of two, including her unborn child. And it was the loss of all the potential she carried with her. The question that lingers most is one we may never truly answer. How could Seth Techel, her husband, the father of her child, betray her so deeply? What drives someone to commit such an unspeakable act? For Lisa's family, the journey to justice was long and grueling. 3 trials, years of uncertainty. But through it all, they kept her memory alive, refusing to let her story be forgotten. As we reflect on this tragedy, we must also ask ourselves, how do we move forward after such profound loss? How do we rebuild trust in a community shaken by violence? And how do we honor the memory of someone whose life was cut short by betrayal? Lisa Techel's legacy is a reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring strength of love. Her family, her friends, and her community continue to carry her memory, ensuring that she is never forgotten. Lisa's story is one that demands to be shared not just for her, but for the countless victims of violence whose voices are silenced. If her story moved you, we encourage you to share this video to keep her memory alive. And we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this case? If you were on the jury, would you have found Seth guilty? Leave a comment below, and let's start a conversation. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories like Lisa's stories of justice, resilience, and the search for truth. Together, we can honor her memory and ensure her story continues to be told.